Alright, let's get this straight. Today, I'm not gonna be talking about crafting or resource gathering, but instead about the most single, pervasive, sacred and overused mechanic in the entire survival genre. It's the one thing you do in almost every one of these games before you can do anything else. It's not a mechanic, I would rather say a violent, repetitive initiation into this new amazing world. That's right folks, we are talking about punching stuff. For the most part, that is. Hey guys, and welcome back to Open Split. So, survival game tropes, that's what I want to talk about in this video. Today I'm going to do it a little bit different. I wanted to kind of train myself to be able to talk freely, and the first step was to just kind of make a few scripts and try to kind of improve my reading and speaking, because English is just not my native language, so it's gonna be a little bit harder for me to do that. I prepared some kind of bullet points and we're just gonna see how it goes, because usually I know what to say, but following a script is much simpler. Without further ado, let's get started with the first topic at hand. The punch as universal law. When it comes to the purest form of this concept, we can take a look at the first game that comes to mind, which is also the one game that kind of invented this whole concept in the first place. And I'm obviously talking about Minecraft, because what's the first thing you do in Minecraft? Well, there are probably also people who just start digging, but usually you just want to punch that tree. So you go to the next tree and just punch away. I guess there's a different game that I play much more, which is called Conan. Well, I played it back in the day on the Xbox 360. It's called Conan Exiles, and I really like that game. It has a very nice atmosphere. Yeah, it kind of suffers from the same thing, this survival game trope of just punching stuff and getting resources out of it. The first thing you do, well, you kind of collect a few bushes first, because you want to clothe yourself with some garments. But then the next thing you do is build a pickaxe, and then you're gonna hack away on a few stones. It kind of teaches a core idea, it kind of shows a core idea that this world presents. Basically, the game treats the world as a big stockpile to be used for your survival experience. So in that sense, it's very similar to what you would call a sandbox. I think I'm not sure, but in Minecraft things don't respawn, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they do, maybe trees grow back, I don't know. But I know that in Conan Exiles, these resource nodes, they just regrow. It's kind of jarring, because you can just see how stone reappears. It's kind of weird. I mean, trees kind of make sense, they could like theoretically regrow, but no. Stones shouldn't regrow, and that's just because Conan Exiles is designed to be an online game, so you're gonna have that. But yeah, you just do that. You are treating the world as a stockpile, and you, the player, you're basically a converter. You're the harvester and the converter, because most of the things just happen inside your menu, or maybe in some external menu, because in Minecraft as well as in Conan you have crafting stations, so you have to choose the right crafting station so you can do it in your inventory. You are the harvester and converter. The outcome is kind of that it just teaches you direct agency. So you just go there and you just punch these things, and then the resources will just drop out. Many games use it exactly like that, which is interesting. Okay, that first part went fairly well. Let's now continue with the punch as a progression mechanic. I am going to take a look at Subnautica, because it has this kind of progression trap, you could say, because many parts of the games can actually be completed without doing any of the upgrade stuff. It kind of uses these resource nodes not like a stockpile, but more like a gatekeeper for your progress. What's funny is that Project Zomboid is very similar in that regard, because you also just punch at something, in this case at zombies. The same transaction kind of remains, it's just like with a twist. In the end, you're still a taker, or a scavenger you could say. In Subnautica, you whack at these nodes, and then these resources drop out. You have to combine them in this kind of replicator, build new tools, build better upgrades, so you can progress and get ever deeper into the ocean. Project Zomboid is very similar because, well, you're not getting resources out of punching the zombies, but they are in the way. So in that sense, you punch the zombies to make way for your progress to get deeper into whatever facility or location you want to explore, versus just getting further down into the depths. In the end, the core mechanic kind of stays the same. You are still going around and punching stuff in order to progress in the game. It's kind of interesting that how Subnautica and Project Zomboid did it kind of differently. I talked about that I think Conan Exiles has a very brilliant atmosphere. However, it doesn't come close to the immersion that you can feel with something like Subnautica or Project Zomboid. It's just more realistic, you could say. Not treating the entire world just as a stockpile, but you more as a scavenger and a taker, is changing the laws a little bit, and that's going to further your illusion that this world is actually real. And I think in both games, Project Zomboid and Subnautica, resources do not regrow, which can also be a big part of that, because regrowing resources, if it's not like logical, it just kind of looks weird, I guess. Man, this sounds now like I wanna say Conan Exiles is not a good game. That's not what I mean. What I actually think is that taking this idea that Subnautica and Project Zomboid give us, if you let that influence a game like Conan Exiles, or maybe also Minecraft, it could be a much better experience because of that. Okay guys, if you came this far into the video, I wanna thank you so much for watching. This is kind of pure improvisation. I didn't really write a script, so maybe it's not that tight. I still hope you really like the content so far, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel right now. Let's continue with the punch as a systems teacher. Of course, I'm going to talk again about Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead, because it's just such an amazing game, and it has this idea of expectation versus reality. I know it's a very inaccessible game, so you have to kind of first get past the graphical barrier, but once you do, it's a very immersive game, and the punch is also relevant here as well. I guess when you play the game for the first time, it doesn't really click immediately, but most of the things you can see are indeed punchable. Some things don't matter, other things do. What I like doing usually is give my starting character, like making him a buff dude, and then he can whack away at the, what was it, the lockers inside the evac shelter, which gives you like steel pipes, I'm not sure. So that's the thing. The entire point of the punch in this case is to have it be a systems teacher. It shows you how the world works. It's showing you what you can punch, so you have to be strong enough to actually do damage to something and break it in the end, and also why you should maybe do that. There's one mechanic in Cataclysm that I think is very central to the entire experience. It really depends on your playstyle, but usually you want to get a car very early on, because cars are just amazing. You can just get away in no time. Just be wary of trying to run over every zombie you see. That's just gonna damage the car very fast, and then you have to repair it. And if you don't have the skills or the tools, well, you're screwed. You need a new car. So what you want is a car, but you also need fuel. So you have to kind of know how to get the fuel, because the gas stations definitely don't work anymore. Okay, what do you have to do then? Well, first of all, you need to know if you need diesel or gasoline. That's the first thing. But after that, well, the easiest thing to do is whack a fridge until you get a long tube, and you can then use this long tube to siphon out the remaining fuel inside the cars that are standing around that were abandoned after the Cataclysm. Honestly, I think this is a very interesting approach because it uses the punch trope to help a world become more alive by making it more systemic. You start to realize things are not just a stockpile, things are made out of things, and you can also combine them to create new things. I guess one of the most interesting projects I ever tried to do in Cataclysm was to make my own base, have my own gang. And it's possible, but it's also very hard to do. And not just because it's hard in the game. The mechanics are obviously very janky, very clunky. It's not really clear how to do things, but you can hook up power, you can get back electricity, you have to just have a generator and all that stuff. I think it's just funny that many of the things you need to build something like this, you get indeed by just punching things. Also, the game kind of has a progression, so you can kind of find things like angle grinders or other power tools, and then they will help you take apart things less destructively, so you're not wasting too much resources while you do it. In conclusion, let's kind of walk it back and see where we came from. Because the first thing we looked at was treating the punch as the universal law. It treats the entire game world as a stockpile, and you, the player, are a harvester and a converter. It's probably the most simple and straightforward kind of progression you can have through punching. With Subnautica and Project Zomboid, even though they are very different to each other, we can see the same shift in tension. Because now it's not just about harvesting, it's about getting somewhere. You have to go into a region, be it deep in the ocean or somewhere where it's crowded with zombies. So you are the taker and the scavenger. This changes obviously the entire gaming experience, because now the punch is not just the tool you use in order to interact with the stockpile of the world, but it actually gatekeeps your entire progression inside the game world itself. It's basically where can you go and where can't you go yet, and you have to punch your way through it. The last game that I mentioned, Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead, creates the perfect synergy of those both ideas, because in Cataclysm the world very much is your stockpile, but getting to the resources is systemic. It has this kind of gatekeeping effect that you can see in Subnautica and Project Zomboid. Well, it's actually very similar to Project Zomboid in terms of getting somewhere, because you have to kind of clear the way, remove all the zombies, otherwise you can't be safe around to walk in the daylight, and it's just a lot of trouble trying to walk around the zombies. But you have to do it, obviously, because you need to find the tools, find the information on how to use these tools, so in the end not only you, the player, learns about the systems, but also the character that you play. Here you are not just the scavenger, you are not the converter or the harvester, you are the systems learner, and this is a very interesting concept, because it subverts the whole idea of having the punch as the only way forward. It kind of combines it with other systems. In this case, it still is the punch that helps you get along, but it is woven into the entire gaming experience, in the entire systemic world, that it starts to make much more sense. Alright guys, I think that's all I can say about punching as a progression mechanic in games. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for staying until the end. Smash that subscribe button, like and share the video, and tell me in the comments below what you think about punching mechanics in games. I would be very interested in hearing about the wacky experiences you had. You can also check out my own survival roguelike on Steam right now if that's what you're interested in. But in any case, I will see you in the next one. Bye.